Hi, I'm V, and today I'm going to be doing a recap of a movie from 2019 called The Aeronauts. Now, in the late 1860s, Amelia Raines embarked on a perilous journey in a horse-drawn carriage towards an unknown destination. However, her panic attack got the better of her, causing her to disembark the carriage. Her sister, Antonia, tried to reason with her, but Amelia was determined to complete her mission. While Amelia tried to compose herself, a young boy ran past her, heading towards a grand venue where a hot air balloon was getting ready for takeoff. As it turned out, this was Amelia's intended destination. The pilot of the balloon, James, was anxiously awaiting Amelia's arrival, as she was to pilot the balloon while he recorded scientific readings. When Amelia finally arrived, she put on a spectacular show for the crowd, much to James' dismay. To make matters worse, Amelia insisted on bringing her dog Posy, I love the name, with them. Now, despite James' objections, Posy went on with them. Ow, ow, ow. However, Amelia's bravado was challenged when she saw a vision of her late husband, Pierce, which unsettled her. Despite her inner turmoil, Amelia maintained a strong front. Look at her. And the balloon took off. But as they soared higher, Amelia climbed above the ropes and surprised James and the onlookers by throwing Posy over the side of the balloon. To everyone's relief, the dog had a parachute on and landed safely. Fuck is wrong with her? In the flashback, James appears before the Royal Society and presents his revolutionary theory that the weather can be predicted. However, his ideas are met with ridicule and mockery led by the haughty Charles Green, and he is dismissed from the building feeling dejected and defeated. As he returns home, his parents console him and urge him to follow Movie's Hunter and to abandon his impractical pursuits. Meanwhile, James' assistant, John True, who harbors envy towards James' adventurous spirit, is approached by a curious young boy requesting the use of his telescope. After some hesitation, John relents and is amazed when the boy spots the balloon James and Amelia are aboard through the lens. Up in the air, James and Amelia marvel at the breathtaking scenery surrounding them. That's so annoying, I'm sorry. But their awe is short-lived as they suddenly encounter a violent storm that throws their balloon off course. As they struggle to navigate through the turbulent weather, their balloon spins uncontrollably and they desperately fight to stay alive. Following the demise of her beloved husband, Amelia found herself in a state of melancholy. It was until Antonia encouraged her to attend a society event that she was jolted back to the reality of the world around her. It was there that she first encountered James, an eccentric man who claimed to be accompanying a friend to court a wealthy woman. Amelia was not impressed with his peculiar demeanor, but agreed to dance with him in order to ward off an undesirable suitor. As they moved to the rhythm of the music, James divulged his desire to fly a balloon and requested that Amelia, who owned one, lend it to him. It was then that she discovered that James had come to the event solely to meet her. Initially angered by his ruse, Amelia eventually relented and agreed to be his pilot. Days later, as Amelia began assembling the balloon, she was confronted by Antonia, who implored her sister to abandon the pursuit of becoming an aeronaut and instead follow a more conventional path. No! Sorry, that's annoying. Despite facing numerous near-death experiences, the two managed to overcome the obstacles and ascend into the skies. As they soared higher and higher, James released a pigeon carrying a message to Green, stating the record-breaking altitude they had achieved. And finally, after reaching an outstanding altitude of over 26,000 feet, they broke the record for the highest altitude achieved by a Yemen. As time ticked by, tick-tock, James and Amelia found themselves growing closer by the day. Despite his initial obsession with scientific readings, James had begun to see the world through Amelia's eyes and appreciate the sheer beauty of their surroundings. Yummy! Their journey together led them to discover an incredible air current that housed a flock of vibrant butterflies, confirming one of John's theories that James had previously dismissed. As they marveled at the stunning sight before them, James and Amelia found themselves drawn to each other like never before. But amidst all the wonder and excitement, there was one topic that Amelia refused to discuss: the tragic death of Pierre, the platypus. In a flashback that occurred much earlier, it was revealed that Amelia and Pierre had been on a balloon flight when disaster struck. Desperate to lose weight and save themselves, Pierre had made the ultimate sacrifice by throwing himself overboard, leaving Amelia alone to mourn his loss. James released the third pigeon, but as he reached for the final one, his heart sank. The poor creature had succumbed to the icy chill, and James knew he had to jettison it to lighten the load. However, as he did so, he failed to notice the grim realization dawning on Amelia's face. He had not brought any warm clothing for the freezing temperatures. Amelia knew they had to start descending, but James refused, insisting they continue their ascent. The two had a whole heated argument, each convinced they were right, but eventually Amelia relented, but only on the condition that they start descending soon. As James practiced for the flight, Amelia approached him with a change of heart. He was horrified, knowing the costs already incurred, but she was unmoved and left. Desperate for a solution, James turned to his father, who unfortunately now suffered from dementia. Feeling defeated, James turned to Green, hoping to accompany him on the flight, but Green laughed at him and turned him down. John intervened, speaking up for James and showing Amelia a book of his snowflake findings. He explained how much the flight means to James. Amelia was torn and unsure of what to do. She visited Pierre's grave seeking guidance. When the snow started to fall, she knew what she had to do, and she decided to join him. The icy grip of cold had seized the air, and the frigid temperature was taking its toll on Amelia and James. As the balloon floated high above, Amelia demanded that they start descending. But James, who was slowly losing his sanity in the cold, was determined to keep going and began throwing equipment and sandbags overboard to speed up their ascent. The situation quickly escalated and the two got into a scuffle. James pushed her to the brink, earning himself a sharp slap in the face. This snapped him out of his delirium and he agreed to start descending. But it was easier said than done. The air release valve, it's gonna get a little technical, but on top of the balloon, there's this thingy and it's frozen shut, and James soon fell unconscious. And Amelia right here was left with no choice but to climb outside the balloon and try to open the valve from the outside, and the biting cold had already ravaged her hands, leaving her with severe frostbite. Despite the pain, she made it to the top and managed to kick open the valve slightly, and the balloon began to slowly descend. Phew! But just as they seemed to have averted disaster, Amelia lost consciousness and started tumbling over the side. As Amelia slowly regains consciousness, she finds herself hanging upside down from a rope she had tied to herself. With a quick burst of energy, she swings back to the balloon and tries to wake up James, who appears lifeless at first. However, after a few tense moments, James finally steers and they both begin to enjoy their descent. Their peaceful descent, however, is short-lived as they notice snow falling around them, hovering in front of their eyes. The balloon starts to collapse and they realize they are not descending fast enough. Frantically, they open the air release, causing Amelia's shoe to slip over the side, revealing her brave act of climbing over the balloon to save James. Despite their efforts to descend faster, they continue to float in the air and they resort to throwing everything they can over the side. But their attempts are useless and they must take drastic action. With no other options left, they climb onto the framework and release the basket. As they freefall, they decide to use the balloon as a makeshift parachute. Although it slows down their descent, it's not enough to prevent them from hitting the trees, causing James to disappear from view while Amelia hits the ground with a thud and is dragged along the rough terrain before coming to a stop. Amelia awakens to find herself in a battered and bruised state, calling out for James in a low, serious tone. James, looking equally worse for wear, staggers towards her, relieved that they both survived. The two exchange a few words expressing their shared sense of euphoria before slowly helping each other up and stumbling towards safety. As they make their way to safety, Amelia reflects on the journey that led them here. She muses that James' groundbreaking discoveries, despite being initially dismissed by the scientific community, eventually paved the way for their first ever weather reports. James, always the hero, gives a rousing speech to the Royal Society where he and his pioneering field are finally acknowledged and accepted. And so, my beautiful, beautiful audience, I don't know if you've come so far, but if you did, thank you. The film ends with James and Amelia embarking on another hot air balloon adventure, and this was the story of Aeronauts. I'm gonna see you in the next hunt. Subscribe, I love you.